Monday, everyone. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start off with a statement regarding the situation in California, and then we'll take questions. President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops inside Los Angeles this weekend without the direction of Governor Newsom represents an alarming disregard for the safety of Americans and their ability to govern themselves. Putting our own military on our streets with this ambiguity in mission is a disservice to our communities and service members. The suggestion from President Trump that Governor Newsom should be arrested for lawfully standing up for his constituents is absurd, dangerous, and indisputably undemocratic. The president's unlawful actions undermine our local authorities, who should be able to do their jobs without a federal intervention escalating and inflaming the situation. I understand that Oregonians may be concerned about the possibility of deployment of the Oregon National Guard here in our state, especially in Portland. My office is tracking this closely and has been in close contact with the Oregon State Police, the Portland Police Bureau, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and the Oregon Military Department. Gatherings across our state and in Portland have been peaceful. As the Commander-in-Chief of the Oregon National Guard, I prioritize our National Guard resources toward the needs, values, and protection of Oregonians. The Superintendent of the Oregon State Police, the Mayor of Portland, the Portland Police Chief, the Multnomah County Sheriff, and I, and a lot of elected leaders, stand united against violence, property damage, harm to public safety workers, or other illegal activity. I have confidence in our local law enforcement professionals to meet any emerging public safety needs in our community. This afternoon, I spoke directly with the Adjutant General, General Grunwald. We agree that the mission of Oregon's National Guard is to defend America and protect Oregonians when called on. The Adjutant General and I remain committed to only deploying the Guard when our mission is clear, purposeful, and supports our primary mission to protect Oregonians. My message to Oregonians today is this: I support your right to peacefully demonstrate. It's a cornerstone of American democracy. Please know that I will do everything in my power to protect the rights and safety of our residents, including the rights and safety of our immigrant communities. But I also want to be clear: violence, harm to public safety workers, or destruction of property will not be tolerated. Finally, I want to close with a message directly to Oregon's immigrant communities. This escalation in California has created even more fear in our communities, and I want them to know that you deserve to feel safe and feel safe in your communities and in your homes. As your governor, I stand with you. I remain unwavering in my commitment to uphold Oregon's sanctuary laws and fight for your protection. And with that, we can talk about that or anything else.
Reminder for the newbies here. I will call on you, and I will call on the for virtuals. We'll switch off. Derek?
Hey, Governor. Well, it sounds like you are having a lot of conversations about this. Have you reached any conclusions about what you could actually do? We're clear on your stance, but if he holds Title X, whatever the president tools are to take the National Guard,
I mean, what options are available to you to sort of curtail or enact your values or anything? I think that California is suing or it's not suing. I mean,
Well, my hope is that President Trump will follow the law. We are not in a situation where I believe he can come over the top of me as governor to control the Oregon National Guard. And as I said, if there are any issues related to activity that relating to protesting that gets out of hand, local law enforcement can handle it.
so when you say we're not in a situation, is that to say none of the activity you've seen would merit any sort of action like that? I mean, you're not saying there's never a time where you could come over the top of you.
Well, let's talk about California. You know, I think you all saw the statement I signed on with the Democratic governors across this country. It is unlawful for the president to do what he has done in California. He did not get the request of the Commander-in-Chief of the California National Guard, Governor Newsom, to deploy in that state. And the circumstances did not warrant that. I disagree with that move. What we are focused on here in Oregon is being clear about, I'm the commander-in-chief, we are taking care of our communities. If there is any activity that needs to be taken care of, it will be done by local law enforcement. And right now, all protests have been peaceful, and there's no reason to think that will be otherwise.
Yes. First question is from Noticias Northwest. I noticed you recently signed into law SB 599, Fair Housing for All. Will you be making an official signing?
I signed the bill last week, I believe. Yes. I think it's an important piece of legislation. I was pleased to sign it. And in terms of any kind of more formal signing of the bill, since we're in legislative session, all the bill signings are kind of being delayed until the session is over.
So House Bill 2025 text was publicly released this morning, and it includes an accountability change that would give you, as the governor, rather than the Transportation Commission, the power to replace ODOT's director. Do you support that change, and would you use it?
So this is about the transportation package that has come out in the committee this morning. I think it's the right change for the executive in my position to be able to have hire and fire authority over our agency directors. That change was done in 2017, and I don't think it has resulted in any kind of better service from the agency, and in general support that change. At this point, I'm not looking at any changes in the agency, but everything that I can have for stronger tools to hold that agency accountable will help me do my job and serve Oregonians better with that agency.
Virtual question from Alex Baumhart at Capital Chronicle. Can I get a response to environmental and public health groups backing out of support for Senate Bill 1154, the groundwater bill? Will she heed their advice and let the bill die for now? Any more info to offer about the 39-page amendment added Friday evening and how that came together?
I am not aware of the amendment's details, but here's what I will say about Senate Bill 1154. This is about improving our ability to intervene in communities where there's groundwater contamination. I think the bill is in good shape, and I know some folks would like it to be stronger, but I think it significantly strengthens what we do in the state, and I support the bill in its current state.
Yes, sir.
No, let's go first.
Okay.
That's all you.
Okay. Governor, you've been one of the loudest voices, if not the loudest voice in leadership for finding sustainable wildfire funding. We have 3 weeks left, and there is not a public package that the rest of us can look at. Has that conversation gone the way you wanted it to? Do you think lawmakers are going to get this done in the next 3 weeks, and what do you want to see in that package?
Well, I am frustrated that we're not further along, but session's not over yet. I continue to have lots of conversations with legislators about the importance of having dedicated funding, not only for wildfire suppression, but for protecting our communities. I have been, like I said, chatting with a lot of legislators trying to figure out a package. I do want to clarify the position that I've had in case, I don't know, last time we talked about this on the kicker, because I think there's been some misinterpretation of that position for me. It was always about taking a portion of one-time money to actually set some money aside. And I just want to remind people, if the highest income earners in our state, people who make over $250,000 a year, did not get their kicker, we'd have about $390 million out of the $1.9 billion kicker to actually dedicate to wildfire suppression and prevention. I think that's a good thing to do. I'm going to continue to work with legislators. I'm looking for bipartisan solutions here. It would be a terrible thing to end this session without dedicated funding. And it's been unclear to me what the co-chairs plan to do in their budget as well on this issue. So I think the bottom line is I'm still working. How's that?
No virtual questions, so defer to the room.
All right. Go ahead, Douglas. Once you give us this speech.
I'm curious to know, once the session ends, what of all the policy bills that have been, passed or are going to be passed are you going to be most close to monitoring? And I'm curious if we're going to see any, like similar to last year on the housing infrastructure bill, some of those line items are going to be said, like, I will not sign this unless I see any certain qualifications, like essentially threatening to veto. Are we going to see any similar to this?
Well, I'll be looking at every line item in every budget bill. Right now, I'm not predicting any disagreement, but it's my job to make sure every dollar spent is going to be spent wisely and with the purpose of advancing the top priorities of the state. So budgets are starting to move, mostly agency budgets. A lot of alignment with my budget that came out, last year. So looking at them all closely to make sure that the choices that are being made, I think, are the right ones for the state. That is the check and balance from the executive branch. In terms of other bills, there are a lot of bills left in Ways and Means. I don't believe a large number of those will move because there just aren't the resources for them. But I will be curious to see what the final determinations are from the legislators. And my job is to make sure we are meeting our top priorities in the state, and so we'll see what they do.
Governor, there have been confrontations between state-private contractors and homeless camps at the Sandy River Delta. The Department of State Land says it's working with you and the state police on this issue. Are you advising that the state police gets involved, and why haven't the state police already gotten involved?
Well, the land that's under consideration is owned by the state. That's why you have the Division of State Lands involved in that. I think we all understand that when folks are living outside, it is not a sustainable situation or a safe situation, and there's been conversations to help folks relocate. I think it's a work in progress right now. We want to make sure that whatever plan is to help folks relocate, that it's meeting the best outcomes for those individuals. And we also have to make sure we don't see continued use of that state land in that way. It is not safe. People are worried about fire safety issues, and so we're monitoring that not only with local authorities but with the state police, because it is state land. But at the end of the day, we're going to need everybody involved to help resolve that situation, not just the state and not just the state police. And I would call on our county partners and the county sheriff to help us with that, because this is in Multnomah County and we need everybody working together to solve the situation.
Is there an estimate when these camps may be cleared?
We don't have a timeline yet. We're trying to do it thoughtfully and as predictable as we can. But the goal is, at some point in time, not to have folks living out there on the Delta, because that is unsafe and has other consequences as well.
We now have a virtual question in the queue.
Okay.
From Nigel Jacobs, Oregon Journalism Project. You said improving educational outcomes is a top priority. You've also said you'll sign Senate Bill 916. That's related to unemployment insurance benefits for employees unemployed due to labor dispute. How are those positions consistent?
I don't think it's inconsistent to support individuals who utilize their right to strike, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector. I know that the argument has been that this will be highly detrimental to our school districts. I don't particularly believe that that is an accurate assessment of that bill. And at the end of the day, I support the right of folks to strike. And I believe the way the bill is crafted, we will actually see shorter strikes if they happen to be.
And move a second.
Another one of your big issues, behavioral health. We now have a state hospital that is in contempt of court. I think that risks sucking up a lot of money if we are fining $500 a day for all these folks, and potentially risks your priorities in terms of expanding services. But I don't know what the picture looks like. So what does it look like to you right now?
Well, a couple things on that. First of all, we are making progress at the state hospital when it comes to our aid and assist population. We are reducing the number of people who have been waiting longer than 7 days, which is part of the contempt order. And we are looking to fund more evaluators and community-based care in this budget. So I feel like we're making progress. And the judge, I think, just ran out of patience with us. We will certainly comply with the order as well as the mitigation plan that is in her order. I will say that being fined on a daily basis is not the best use of taxpayer dollars. I am working hard with legislators to finish this session with key investments to help this population, both at the state hospital for better evaluation and more flexibility, but also community-based placement. I have a significant ask in for additional secure residential capacity in the communities for folks to be. not in jail, and not in the state hospital, but somewhere else where they can get the appropriate care to then, be returned to the courts. So we have a suite of things that we are working on. I have support from legislative leaders to fund it. It is frustrating to me that we weren't given until the end of session to deal with that, but this is the situation we have, so we're going to do the best we can. And I would ask legislators and district attorneys and the courts to all work together to make sure we can serve this population the best we can.
Quick follow-up, have you seen an estimate for how much these fines might cost? And I guess I just don't know, does this come from the same pool as would be, your service expansion money would be coming from, or maybe it's a different way we pay those? I just don't know, but it feels like they could be competing.
Well, I would argue to the co-chairs not to take any money from the capacity investments that we're talking about, because if we don't build more residential capacity in the community for folks to be, we will not meet our goals. From a wide estimate, assuming we don't continue to make progress, assuming we have numbers where we have folks staying, longer than 7 days, we are estimating anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 a month in fines, assuming we don't continue to make the progress we need.
Hi, Governor. You today signed SB 5951, which would regulate corporate control and ownership of local medical practices. You haven't spoken on that yet publicly. I'm wondering why you made that decision. If you could explain it a little more.
Well, I think there's been a lot of good work to create some protections for what we're seeing in healthcare across the country with private equity firms, and the way they've been coming in and buying up practices and reducing access to care in communities across the country. My understanding, and I think when people look at it, the bill that I signed today that was done by the legislature is actually, I think, the strongest bill in the country that says we need to take this issue seriously, and hopefully it'll become model policy, not only for other states, but frankly, Congress to take up and say, look, we need to make sure that our healthcare providers and our delivery system stays local and is controlled locally, and I think that's what that bill is trying to do.
Sandy.
Sorry, reach.
Governor, this is a question coming from our public safety team, so I just want to be, we talked about this at the start, but just to be abundantly clear, are you hearing anything about the National Guard being prepared to deploy to this weekend's protest, or are you talking to the National Guard about being on standby for a protest this weekend?
Currently, there are no plans from my office or with the Adjutant General about the National Guard as it relates to protests here in Oregon. Again, I think local law enforcement has been working well together. There was a lot of good coordinated work around the election, around the inauguration. There have been many peaceful protests since the start of the Trump administration, and I think we will continue to see good local cooperation to make sure everything stays peaceful and safe.
Yes.
The OHA and the state hospital were fined and found in contempt by a federal judge last week for violating the Constitution, and the hospital is still in danger of losing its accreditation. It doesn't seem like this situation is getting any better. What can be done in the next weeks and months to, improve the situation?
Well, we've already initiated 30 and 60-day plans to improve what is happening at the hospital. I have an interim director. We're actively searching for a new permanent director for the state hospital. We are improving our numbers in terms of how long it takes for someone to get into the state hospital from the aid and assist population. Our numbers are all trending in the right direction. We are not done, however. We have a lot of work to do still, but my message to folks is we understand there are challenges. We have action plans to address them, and we're going to keep pushing forward in that regard. And I need the legislature to help with investments to continue that progress we're making.
Any results?
Virtuals.
All right. Take it to the
Great one. We haven't heard, I guess I haven't heard your reaction to what you know of the transportation package. I know it's 175 pages, but I think your office has been in contact with legislative leadership on what this might look like. Broadly, are you supportive of this? It feels like, a pretty expensive package at the end of the day, but curious your thoughts.
Well, I got briefed on the package end of last week, and it got introduced today. I think it is, first of all, some really good work to address wide range of interests in having a comprehensive transportation package. It will provide, if passed, stable and sustainable funding to do the maintenance we need to do at ODOT, make sure we maintain our commitments on some very major projects. So I have not had a chance to review every word in it, so we want to take a look at it. But right now, I think they're on the right track to get done by end of session with a very comprehensive package.
Well, and you've passed these things before, if I'm right, 2017. This is not much time to take up a very big bill. So it sounds like you're saying you're confident that they can muscle this.
They still have the time to do it, yes.
You made your second sort of what he has called a reversal on your extradition decisions when it comes to, after Eugene Weekly, the case with the burglary ring suspect that was part of that ring that allegedly targeted Asian families out in Eugene. Do you still have confidence in Ms. Townsend and her capabilities running the extradition services? I know you're pushing for in your budget more money to go there, and it seems like recently, and I'm wondering if you can clarify if she was off training other people at the Oregon conference for the National Association of Extradition Officials. It seems like she was on their schedule speaking to them earlier this month.
We did have a national conference here in Oregon, which was, I'm glad we had that conference here. It's very technical work. I have full confidence in our efforts in our office. My budget for the governor's office is moving forward. One of the reasons we need a second person is we are managing a lot of extradition requests. And I think you all know from the stories that have been out there, the budget for those extraditions comes out of my office. And it's also, I think, important because of how complicated and important the work is that we have a backup. And without a deputy, which is now in the budget that's moving, that will be very helpful for us to stay on top of the request. In case of the Eugene Weekly case, I think you all know, I looked at it again, said we could make a different call there, and we did. As it relates to the burglary ring, my understanding from the DA's office was that the suspect that they were of interest, that there was interest in, was already in custody with federal immigration officials. Then it later became clear that there might be another person. I think it's very challenging when we're not getting urgent, up-to-date information from our district attorneys to be in partnership to deal with these extraditions. I will continue to adjust as we have to for both public safety reasons and for community safety reasons, and that's what you see in the case of we need to stand strong when it comes to hate crimes. But again, I need strong partnership with our DAs to get that information and have better communication so we're not having to do this back and forth all the time.
All right, let's go Carlos and then Staja, and then we're done.
Now that it's been a few weeks since you announced the workforce around behavioral healthcare workforce, that task force.
The council, yeah.
Sorry, the council. I'm curious what kind of feedback you've heard, and I'm also curious, I think you touched on this earlier, but I'm curious to hear about your thought process to have your wife share that after the controversy, all the controversy around this thing for last year.
Well, the council has been launched. It's 20-some professionals who understand the need to improve the behavioral health workforce across the state. I think you're aware my wife is chairing and she has 3 vice chairs. My wife is a professional in this area. She is committed to this topic, and I think will bring the appropriate level of experience to help lead this organization, lead the council's work. And it's the right work at the right time with the right people, and I feel confident they're going to come up with some great recommendations.
All right, last question.
So last week, OHA's Medicaid director presented to some of the legislators about how Trump's big beautiful bill could impact Medicaid, and they were talking about how some pretty severe cuts could take place, and one representative even floated possibly the idea of how it could need a special session to kind of come back and approach how you replace that funding. Is that something you're thinking about? And are there any other special sessions that you're thinking about could possibly happen?
I'm smiling because we're not even done with the regular session. But when it comes to both the Medicaid cuts and the SNAP cuts being contemplated by Congress right now, I've been super clear. They are bad for Oregonians. People are going to lose their health care. They're going to lose, their ability to buy food and put it on the table. Right now, I'm focused on fighting with our congressional delegation to keep that from happening. If any or all of those cuts go through
and the president signs it, we will have challenges here at the state level to deal with that. And to be very frank, we're just going to see what happens, right? The depth of the cuts could be so big that we would have to have a special session before next year, but it could be months before they even figure out this bill. So right now, they shouldn't make any cuts. They are bad for people, and all they're doing is trying to do this to pay for tax cuts that for people who frankly don't need them. So hopefully that just doesn't happen, because it's going to be bad for the country and bad for Oregon.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody. Have a good one.